The wine glass trembled in my grip as Luther's voice cut through the ambient restaurant noise like a serrated blade. People at neighboring tables had stopped their conversations mid-sentence, forks suspended in air, all eyes drawn to our corner booth like moths to a flame. "You never listen." His fist came down on the white tablecloth, rattling silverware. "Every single time. Mikhail, it's the same exhausting pattern with you." I reached across the table instinctively, wanting to calm him, to lower his voice, to salvage what remained of this disastrous evening. My fingertips barely grazed his wrist before he jerked away as though my touch burned. "Don't." The single word carried enough venom to make me recoil. "I'm done pretending everything's fine when you constantly demand more than I can give." My throat constricted. The couple 2 tables over wasn't even pretending anymore. They watched our meltdown like it was dinner theater. Heat crawled up my neck, painting my face in shades of humiliation. "Can we please discuss this somewhere private? Maybe head home and talk this through properly?" "I'm not going anywhere with you tonight." Luther pulled out his wallet with deliberate slowness, extracted his credit card and dropped it onto the table between us like a judge's gavel. The metallic clink seemed deafening in the sudden hush. "Stay if you want. Leave if you want. Frankly, I've stopped caring which." "Wait, please." But he was already moving, chair scraping against hardwood, jacket snatched from the seat back. The restaurant door chimed as he pushed through it, and then he was gone, swallowed by the night outside. I sat frozen, soup spoon still clutched in my hand, staring at the door he'd just walked through. This marked our 3rd major argument this month alone. Always following the identical script. Explosive fight, dramatic exit, radio silence for days, then saccharine apologies and hollow promises. Rinse and repeat. Yet something felt different tonight. The remorse that usually flickered in his eyes right before storming out, completely absent. Our waiter approached with visible reluctance, clearly wishing he'd requested a different section tonight. "Sir, is everything? Do you need anything?" "Just the check, please." My voice came out steadier than I felt. At least I'd managed that much dignity. I settled the bill using Luther's abandoned card. Fitting, since he'd ordered the expensive wine and stepped out into the October cold. My jacket hung in Luther's car. Naturally, because tonight couldn't possibly get worse, could it? I stood on the sidewalk, arms wrapped around myself, fingers already going numb as I fumbled with my phone to summon a ride. A vehicle pulled up directly in front of me. Black Range Rover. Windows tinted dark enough to be illegal. Engine purring with expensive precision. I stepped aside, assuming someone was arriving for dinner. Instead, the driver's window descended smoothly. My heart performed an acrobatic maneuver in my chest. The man behind the wheel looked like he'd walked off a cologne advertisement. Sharp cheekbones cast shadows in the streetlight, dark stubble dusting a jawline that could cut glass. Hazel eyes studied me with unsettling intensity, seeing more than I wanted to reveal. A black leather jacket hung perfectly on broad shoulders, and silver rings glinted on fingers draped casually over the steering wheel. "Need a lift?" His voice carried the kind of depth that vibrated in your chest. I scrambled to compose myself. "Thanks, but I've got it covered." "Mikhail, right?" The sound of my name from this stranger's mouth froze me mid-reach for my phone. "How do you know that?" "Luther's my cousin. I was parked over there when he made his grand exit." He gestured vaguely toward the lot. "Look, I understand this is awkward as hell, but standing out here in the cold isn't smart. Get in before hypothermia becomes your evening's second disaster. I don't make a habit of accepting rides from strangers." "Cameron." He extended his hand through the window. Strong hand, manicured nails. A watch that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "And you might not know me, but I definitely know Luther. Trust me on this. If he left you here, he's not coming back. Not tonight, anyway." The truth of those words stung worse than the cold. I was exhausted, bone-tired of the drama, the emotional whiplash, the public humiliation. What did I have to lose at this point? I opened the passenger door and slid into warmth. The interior smelled of leather and something woodsy, expensive cologne or air freshener. I couldn't tell. Cameron adjusted the music system, and soft jazz filled the space as he pulled into traffic. Neither of us spoke initially. He drove like someone completely comfortable with silence, occasionally changing lanes with practiced ease. while I stared out the window trying to process the past 30 minutes. "Where to?" he asked after several minutes, tone conversational rather than invasive. I rattled off my address, then added after a pause, "I appreciate this. Really. You didn't have to stop." "I know I didn't." His eyes stayed on the road, but I've seen Luther's pattern enough times to recognize when someone needs help. This isn't my first experience with his theatrical exits. Pattern? Curiosity warred with dread in my stomach. His jaw muscles flexed. This isn't his first rodeo with this particular stunt. Every relationship hits this phase where he manufactures drama, storms off, then returns days later with guilt trips and empty promises. He's exceptionally skilled at making his partners feel responsible for his behavior. I had no response because deep down I recognized the accuracy. This wasn't the first time Luther had publicly embarrassed me, yet somehow I always convinced myself that this would be the last time, that he'd finally change. We continued in companionable quiet. Cameron didn't bombard me with invasive questions or unsolicited advice. He simply drove, occasionally adjusting the temperature, making sure I was comfortable. At a red light he reached back and produced a water bottle. "Here. You barely touched your food back there." How had he noticed that? He must have witnessed the entire argument unfold. When we reached my building, Cameron left the engine running, heat still flowing. I unbuckled my seatbelt but found words sticking in my throat. "Thanks again," I finally managed, hand on the door handle. "Mikkel." Something in his tone made me pause. He pulled a card from his jacket pocket, matte black with gold lettering, just a name and number, simple yet clearly expensive. "If you need anything, and I mean anything, call." No strings attached, no expectations. Sometimes we all need someone who isn't tangled up in the mess. I accepted the card, our fingers brushing briefly. Those hazel eyes held mine, unreadable yet somehow comforting in their intensity. "Why are you doing this?" The question emerged barely above a whisper. His smile carried sadness I didn't understand. "Because I wish someone had done this for me once. When I was in a situation similar to Luther's games." Before I could probe further, he nodded toward my building. "Go on. It's cold. Tomorrow will be better." I exited the vehicle, card clutched in my hand. Halfway to the entrance I glanced back. Cameron hadn't moved. He was ensuring I made it inside safely. I raised my hand in a small wave. He nodded once before driving away. Inside my apartment I checked my phone to find 14 missed calls from Luther and countless messages. One text made my stomach twist. "Where the hell are you? We need to talk. Now." I silenced my phone and collapsed onto the couch. Cameron's card still pressed between my fingers, wondering what exactly I'd just stepped into. Morning arrived with a pounding headache and the residual anxiety of fractured sleep. Every hour brought me awake, sometimes from Luther's incessant notification sounds, other times from intrusive thoughts about hazel eyes and that inexplicable sense of safety I'd felt in Cameron's car. The combination left me disoriented. I'd ignored every attempt Luther made to contact me. Throughout the night, for 2 full days afterward. Yet he persisted relentlessly. Messages cycled through every emotional manipulation tactic. Apologetic, angry, guilt-inducing, then back to apologetic. "Mikkel, I'm sorry baby, can we please talk? You're being completely unfair. You're acting like a child. At least hear me out." "Fine. Ignore me. See if I care anymore." Each text produced a confusing cocktail of emotions in my chest. Guilt, anger, exhaustion. I couldn't identify which predominated. What I knew with certainty was my desperation for this cycle to end. The fighting, apologizing, temporary peace, then inevitable repetition. By the 3rd day, I needed escape. Fresh air, mental space. I headed to Lunar Brews, a cozy coffee shop near my office where I often worked weekends. I claimed my usual corner table, opened my laptop, and attempted to appear productive. Reality proved less cooperative. My screen displayed nothing but a blinking cursor. No words materialized. The door chimed. Luther walked in. My heart plummeted. He made a beeline for my table, pulled out the chair opposite without invitation, and sat down. He looked rough, dark crescents under his eyes, hair uncombed, shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. But his eyes held that familiar determination that warned me this conversation would be difficult. "Seriously, Mikkel? His voice stayed low but vibrated with intensity. You're avoiding me like I committed some heinous crime. Luther, I'm working. I gestured weakly at my obviously inactive laptop. Bullshit. Your screen's locked and completely blank. He planted his elbows on the table, leaning forward. Listen, I messed up. I acknowledge that. What happened at the restaurant was wrong. But you also overreacted significantly. I overreacted? I closed my laptop, keeping my voice controlled. You abandoned me in a restaurant, Luther. In front of dozens of witnesses. Do you comprehend how humiliating that was? Because you were suffocating me. His volume began rising before he caught himself, continuing in an aggressive whisper. You constantly expect things I cannot provide. I'm human, Mikkel. Humans make mistakes. Basic respect is too much to expect. He exhaled heavily, dragging both hands through his already chaotic hair. Mikkel, I love you, but I require space sometimes. And you don't understand that. You become clingy, demanding. It's exhausting. Clingy. That word landed harder than the public abandonment. Love, I repeated, my voice hollow. You use that word like it's a band-aid, like saying it magically fixes everything. Because it can. Luther reached across the table for my hand, but I withdrew before he made contact. Give me another chance. Please. I'll do better. I promise. How many chances, Luther? I finally met his eyes directly. How many times will we repeat this exact cycle? Fight, breakup, threat, apology, brief peace, then back to the beginning. I'm exhausted. His expression transformed. The desperation vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. So this is final? You're seriously ending things? Over one mistake? One mistake? I almost laughed. Luther, this is the 5th time this year. The 5th time you've publicly humiliated me. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly across the floor. Several customers glanced our direction. Perfect. Fantastic. When you realize what you've thrown away, don't come crawling back. He stormed toward the exit, the door slamming hard enough to rattle its frame. I remained seated, heart racing, hands trembling. The elderly barista who knew my regular order approached with a complimentary cookie. You okay, honey? I nodded, though I wasn't certain if that was true. That night, as I lay in bed chasing elusive sleep, my phone illuminated with an unknown number. Coffee good? Better than the drama, I hope. Confusion preceded recognition. The number pattern seemed familiar. Me. Cameron, how did you? Cameron. I own Lunar Brews. Was checking security footage. Saw you. Purple hoodie. Corner table. Looking stressed. Also saw Luther. Looked like his usual performance. Wait. He owned my favorite coffee shop? Me. You own it? That's unexpected. Cameron, among other investments. Real estate, restaurants, several cafes. Standard businessman portfolio. More importantly, you okay? Luther appeared aggressive. Me. Define okay. Cameron. Fair point. Look, I realize this is unconventional. But if you want to talk genuine conversation, zero judgment. Want to grab coffee? Actual coffee. Not that overpriced latte you ordered earlier. I hesitated. Was this appropriate? Luther and I had essentially ended things technically, and now I was considering coffee with his cousin. Me? When? Cameron. Now. I'm out. What? I rushed to the window and looked down. That familiar black Range Rover sat at the curb. Cameron leaned against the hood, phone in hand, looking up at my building. When he spotted me in the window, he waved casually. I grabbed my jacket and nearly tripped rushing down the stairs, wondering whether I was making the biggest mistake or best decision of my life. Cameron didn't take me to some random cafe. Instead, we ended up at a private rooftop lounge, completely deserted except for us. City lights sprawled below like scattered jewels across black velvet. Despite the cold gears, strategically placed heaters created warm pockets throughout the space. Low instrumental music drifted from concealed speakers. You own this place too? I asked, settling into a surprisingly comfortable outdoor chair. No. Belongs to a friend. Tyler. He's an architect who designed this space. He gave me keys because I come here when I need distance from the city chaos. Cameron poured coffee from a French press into 2 ceramic mugs. Genuine quality coffee. Evident from the aroma alone. Benefits of knowing the right people. I took a sip. Perfect. Smooth. Strong. superior to anything I'd consumed in weeks. So, Cameron leaned back, eyes on me without creating discomfort. Tell me, what did Luther say today? Let me guess, standard script. How do you know we talked? Your face, plus that frustrated energy surrounding you, dead giveaway. Also, I've witnessed this pattern before. Luther has a specific type he dates in a predictable sequence he follows. I sighed, cupping the warm mug. He apologized, sort of, then blamed me simultaneously. Called me clingy. Cameron's jaw visibly tightened even in the dim lighting. Classic Luther tactic. Shift blame. Make you feel like the problem originated with you. You don't seem particularly fond of him, I observed carefully. For family, I'm not, and I'll be honest with you, Mikkel. He set down his mug, leaning forward slightly. Luther and I aren't close. We maintain forced civility at family gatherings. Nothing more. Do you know how his previous relationship ended? I shook my head. He said it was mutual. Different life goals. Cameron laughed bitterly. Mutual. He cheated. Multiple times. Then when properly confronted, he gaslighted his ex, Marcus, so thoroughly that Marcus believed everything was his fault. Marcus needed therapy after that Merzif. My stomach twisted uncomfortably. You're lying. Luther would. Am I? Cameron retrieved his phone, scrolled briefly, then turned the screen toward me. Messages. Screenshots of conversations between Luther and Marcus. Dates clearly visible right when Luther and I started dating. Luther, I'm sorry. I messed up. But understand, you pushed me toward this. You were never emotionally available. Marcus, I was dealing with my mom's cancer, Luther. You knew that, Luther, and I supported you, but I have needs too. You can't blame me for seeking comfort elsewhere. I pushed the phone away, nausea rising. Stop. I don't want to see more. I'm not showing this to hurt you, Mikkel. Cameron pocketed his phone, voice gentler. But you deserve truth. Luther follows patterns. Finds vulnerable people, love bombs them initially, then gradually introduces manipulation. And you're his current target. Why do you care so much? My voice cracked. You don't even know me. We've barely met twice. Cameron remained silent for a long moment. He lifted his coffee, sipped, then gazed out at the city lights. When he finally spoke, his voice carried vulnerability I hadn't heard before. Because I've been exactly where you are. Different person, identical pattern. Same cycle of hoping for change. Same public humiliations. Same meaningless apologies. He turned toward me, hazel eyes reflecting the lights. His name was Dominic. I wasted 3 years. When it finally ended, I was so broken that rebuilding took nearly 2 years. I'm sorry, I whispered. That must have been hell. Pure hell. And I don't want you experiencing what I endured. That's why I care. Because nobody stopped me. Everyone saw. Everyone knew, but nobody intervened. I figured it out the hard way. Silence fell between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Understanding. Shared pain. What happened to Dominic? I asked. Moved on to his next victim within weeks. Last I heard, he's engaged to some lawyer. Poor guy has no idea what's coming. Cameron shook his head. But that's no longer my concern. I learned, grew, moved forward. Did you though? I challenged gently. Move forward? He smiled sadly. Most days, yes. Some days the scars still ache. But that's existence, isn't it? We carry our past while trying not to let it define our future. We continued talking. He shared more about his businesses, not boasting but genuinely discussing his journey. Coffee shops, restaurants, real estate investments. Built everything from nothing after college, through sheer determination. I told him about my mundane accounting job. Predictable routine, abandoned dreams. What dreams? Cameron asked with genuine interest. Photography, I admitted, feeling foolish. I wanted to be a travel photographer. Ridiculous, I know. It's not ridiculous. He interrupted firmly. Why did you stop? Luther said it was impractical. Said I needed stability, not unrealistic fantasies. Cameron's expression darkened. Of course he did. Anything not serving his narrative gets dismissed. Time evaporated without my noticing. When I checked my phone past midnight, I should leave, I said reluctantly. Not wanting to abandon this peaceful bubble. Let me drive you. Cameron stood, stretching. The drive back featured comfortable silence. The kind where filling every moment with words feels unnecessary. When we reached my building, Cameron walked me to the entrance this time. "Thanks for tonight," I said genuinely. I needed this. The conversation, the perspective, everything. "Anytime, Mikhail." He paused, seemingly struggling with words. "I know this is complicated. Luther's my cousin. Technically, I shouldn't interfere. But I genuinely believe you deserve better than what he's providing. So, if he approaches again with apologies and promises, please think carefully. Don't let emotions override logic." I nodded, absorbing his words. "And Mikhail?" He waited until I met his eyes. "You're not clingy. You're not too much. You're not the problem. Please don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Before I could respond, he squeezed my shoulder once, brief, friendly, reassuring. Then walked back to his car. I entered my apartment feeling lighter than I had in months. But checking my phone revealed 23 new messages from Luther. Most mixed apologies with accusations. One made me freeze. "Luther. Saw you with Cameron. My own cousin? Really, Mikhail? Didn't know you were that type. We'll see how this plays out." My stomach dropped. He was watching me. Another message arrived immediately. "Luther. Hope you're ready for consequences. You're gonna regret this." The peaceful feeling from the rooftop evaporated completely, replaced by cold dread. Morning arrived with a splitting headache and anxiety coiled tight in my chest like a compressed spring. Luther's threatening messages played on loop in my mind, each word etched deeper with every replay. I considered texting Cameron, asking for advice, maybe even just hearing his voice, but stopped myself. This was my battle. I needed to handle it alone. Prove to myself I wasn't the dependent person Luther had always accused me of being. The universe, however, had different plans. I was heading to my mundane job at the accounting firm where I'd worked as a junior analyst for 3 years. When my boss Veronica summoned me to the conference room. Unusual. Performance reviews were always scheduled weeks in advance. Not spontaneous Friday morning ambushes. "Mikhail, have a seat." She slid a thick folder across the polished mahogany table. Her expression unreadable, neither pleased nor concerned, just professionally blank. "Is something wrong? Did I make an error in the quarterly reports?" "Nothing's wrong. Actually, quite the contrary." She tapped the folder with one perfectly manicured nail. "You've received an external offer." "An offer?" Confusion clouded my thoughts. I hadn't applied anywhere recently. Hadn't even updated my resume in over a year. "Hamilton and Company. They want you as their senior analyst, direct promotion from junior to senior level, which is exceptionally rare in our industry. Triple your current salary. Comprehensive benefits package including healthcare, dental, vision, stock options that vest over 4 years. Signing bonus equivalent to 6 months' salary." She paused, watching my reaction with those sharp, assessing eyes. "I verified everything personally, Mikhail. This is legitimate." My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Official letterhead embossed with gold. Detailed offer letter on expensive paper. Contract with more zeros than I'd ever imagined seeing attached to my name. Everything appeared professional, legitimate, real. Then one detail stopped my heart. "Hamilton and Company. Cameron Hamilton's empire." "Wait, this is Cameron Hamilton's corporation, correct?" Veronica leaned back, fingers steepled beneath her chin. "Did you know him before this?" The offer came directly from him with a personal recommendation attached. My stomach performed acrobatics. "We've met recently, but I never asked for this. I had absolutely no idea." Mikhail breathed. "I'm not accusing you of anything unethical." She smiled slightly, the first warmth I'd seen from her this morning. "Your work here has been exemplary, consistently top performance ratings, 0 errors, innovative solutions to complex problems. I'm not surprised someone noticed your talent. However, yes, Cameron did personally recommend you to his human resources department. They conducted their own independent review of your portfolio in previous work samples. They were impressed." Silence filled the room as my mind raced. Was this genuine recognition of my abilities? Or pity? Charity disguised as opportunity? Another form of control? "This is entirely your decision," Veronica continued, standing to pour herself coffee from the carafe on the side table. "But professionally speaking, this represents a massive opportunity. Hamilton and Company is top tier in this industry. Having that name on your resume opens doors that might otherwise remain closed for years. Can I have time to consider? They've given you 48 hours to respond. She returned to her seat. But Mikkel, don't let personal complications cloud professional judgments. Whatever relationship exists between you and Cameron, friendship, acquaintance, whatever category it falls into, this opportunity is real. Consider it seriously based on merit, not emotions. I left the conference room clutching the folder like a life preserver, feeling dizzy and disoriented. Without consciously deciding, my feet carried me straight to Lunar Brews. Cameron stood behind the counter, surprisingly hands-on for someone wealthy enough to hire an entire staff, personally crafting drinks with the focused precision of an artisan. Mikkel. Hey, want your usual? He smiled, genuine warmth lighting his face. No. I slammed the folder on the counter harder than intended. Several customers glanced over. What is this? He looked at the folder, then back at me, smile fading into cautious neutrality. A job offer. Congratulations are traditionally in order. You cannot just, Cameron. You cannot just do this. Frustration, confusion, and overwhelming feelings I couldn't name all tangled together in my throat. I'm not forcing anything. His voice remained maddeningly calm, which somehow intensified my frustration. Human Resources reviewed your profile through standard industry connections. I mentioned knowing someone exceptionally talented who's being underutilized in their current position. They investigated independently, were impressed, extended an offer. That's standard corporate procedure. This feels like charity. Like you pity me. Pity? Something hardened in his expression. Mikkel, I don't do charity, not in business. This is business. You received this offer because you genuinely deserve it. I researched your work portfolio after we met. Yes, I looked you up. Feel free to sue me for curiosity. You're talented. You're being wasted at that firm, relegated to junior status when you should be leading projects. Simple facts. Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you at least mention you were recommending me? Because I didn't want you feeling pressured. Didn't want you thinking this was some obligation or transaction requiring reciprocation. I wanted the decision to be purely professional, based entirely on merits. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed defensively. But clearly I miscalculated. You've taken this personally, because it is personal. I lowered my voice, aware of the customers pretending not to listen. Luther and I just ended things. You're his cousin. Now suddenly you're appearing in my career? This doesn't strike you as suspicious? As potentially manipulative? Cameron's jaw muscles flexed visibly. Mikkel, listen carefully. If I wanted to manipulate you, if I wanted to control you, I could have already done so. You have zero leverage against me financially, socially, professionally. But I haven't. I offered you a professional opportunity that you earned through your own talents. That's the entirety of it. Is it really? I challenged. Or is this your method of getting revenge on Luther? Or keeping me indebted to you? Silence crashed between us like a physical force. Cameron stared at me, and for the first time I saw genuine hurt bleeding through his carefully maintained composure. Real pain, not anger. Wow. All right then. He straightened, professional mask sliding seamlessly into place. If that's your assessment of my character, decline the offer. Stay where you are. Stay safe in your comfortable mediocrity. I genuinely don't care anymore. He turned toward the back room, clearly finished with this conversation. Wait, Cameron. He stopped but didn't turn around. You've already decided what you think of me. Mikkel, Luther's villainy apparently runs in the family according to your judgment. Fine. But at least I was offering you an actual opportunity with real growth potential, not empty promises wrapped in manipulation. He disappeared through the door, which closed with quiet finality behind him. I stood there feeling like absolute garbage. Customers pretended fascination with their phones. The barista, different from the elderly woman I'd seen before, awkwardly wiped down an already spotless counter. I left, folder clutched in white-knuckled hands, and went directly to the nearby park. Sitting on a weathered bench, I read through every single page carefully. Every clause. Every benefit. Every minute detail. And honestly, it was legitimate. More than legitimate, it was generous. Better than industry standard in every measurable way. My phone buzzed with a text from Luther. Heard you got an offer from Hamilton and Company. Let me guess, Cameron's charity. Pathetic, Mikkel. You're actually falling for his manipulation? He's using you to hurt me. I wanted to throw my phone into the duck pond. Evening found me at home, laptop open, formal acceptance email drafted to human resources. Professional, grateful, excited about the opportunity. My cursor hovered over the send button when my phone rang. Unknown number, but not Cameron's. Hello, Mikkel? This is Veronica. I know this is unprofessional, calling you personally, but I felt you should know something. Is everything all right? Luther came to the office today. After you left, he demanded to speak with me, tried convincing me that Hamilton and Company's offer was wrong for you, that Cameron has ulterior motives, that I should discourage you from accepting. My blood turned to ice. He did what? I had security escort him out, obviously. But Mikkel, he seemed obsessed, desperate in a way that concerns me deeply. Please be careful. And whatever decision you make regarding this job, ensure it's yours. Not influenced by Luther's tantrums, not influenced by guilt about Cameron. Make it yours alone. Thank you for telling me. After hanging up, I took a long, steadying breath and pressed send. The next morning brought a confirmation email. Start date in 2 weeks. Welcome package attached with onboarding information. And one simple text from Cameron. Congratulations on your new role. You've earned it. Looking forward to having you on the team. Professional, distant, formal, exactly what I deserved after doubting him so thoroughly. But could I fix this? Or had I permanently destroyed something that never even had a chance to begin? My first day at Hamilton and Company arrived wrapped in nervousness and anticipation. The building itself was architectural poetry, all glass and steel, modern lines, minimalist elegance. Reception featured friendly staff who processed my security badge efficiently while handing over a comprehensive orientation packet. My office, an actual office with walls and a door, not the cubicle I'd grown accustomed to, boasted a window view of the city, dual high-resolution monitors, ergonomic furniture that probably cost more than my monthly rent. In neighboring offices, senior analysts and consultants collaborated casually, the environment clearly competitive but refreshingly non-toxic. The orientation session introduced me to the team. Everyone seemed welcoming, genuinely helpful, asking intelligent questions about my background and expertise. Nobody asked, "How do you know Mr. Hamilton?" or "Why were you hired directly at senior level?" Either professional courtesy prevailed, or they simply didn't care about office politics. Cameron? Nowhere to be seen. I assumed he was avoiding me, completely justified after our coffee shop confrontation. During lunch, I sat alone in the modern cafeteria until a colleague approached. Jason, from the finance team, mid-30s with an easy smile and relaxed demeanor. "Mind if I join you?" "Please do. You're the new senior analyst, correct?" "Mikkel?" He set down his tray, extending his hand for a firm handshake. "That's me, still figuring out where everything is. Honestly, you'll adapt quickly. This place is well organized but flexible too. Cameron runs everything efficiently but fairly. Unlike some CEOs I've worked under, who managed through fear." Jason took a bite of his sandwich. "Actually, did you know he specifically mentioned your hiring during our last management meeting? Said we were fortunate to have you joining the team. That's rare. He usually lets human resources handle recruitment without personal commentary." Guilt twisted in my stomach like a physical pain. He mentioned me. Yeah. Typically human resources manages everything autonomously, but he was directly involved in your case apparently. You must have made quite an impression on him. Before I could formulate a response, Jason's phone buzzed. "Meeting in 5 minutes. See you around, Mikkel. Welcome to the team." The remainder of the day blurred into training sessions, software tutorials, introductions to key personnel. Exhausting but invigorating. I felt valued here, capable, like my work actually mattered beyond just numbers on spreadsheets. Around 6 o'clock, most employees began departing. I was organizing my new office when someone knocked. Cameron. He stood in the doorway, hands in pockets, expression carefully neutral. Professional suit, hair perfectly styled, embodying every inch the successful CEO role. "Have a moment?" "Yes, of course. Come in." I stood awkwardly, unsure of proper protocol. He closed the door, maintaining professional distance. "I wanted to establish clear boundaries from day one. Here, I'm your boss, not your direct supervisor. The vice president of operations handles that. But ultimately, I own this company. Whatever existed personally between us stays outside these walls. Understood? Understood completely. Good. Professionally, I expect excellent work. I believe you're capable of delivering it. That's why you're here. Personal history, family connections, none of that matters inside this building. Clear, crystal clear, excellent. He turned to leave. Cameron, wait. He stopped, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. I'm sorry for what I said at the coffee shop. I was overwhelmed, confused, and I took it out on you unfairly. You were trying to help and I made you the villain in a story where you were actually trying to be the hero. You didn't deserve that treatment. Silence stretched for several heartbeats. Apology accepted, he said finally, voice softer than before. But Mikkel, I meant what I said. Whatever is developing between us, friendship, acquaintance, whatever we're calling it, cannot interfere with work. Too many complications otherwise. Too many potential conflicts of interest. I understand completely. He finally turned, eyes meeting mine briefly. For what it's worth, I'm genuinely glad you accepted the position. You belong here. He left before I could respond. The following weeks dissolved into a blur of productivity. I immersed myself completely in work. Projects varied and challenged me in ways I'd craved for years. Exactly what I needed to feel intellectually fulfilled. The team proved collaborative, supportive, deadlines were demanding, but fair. And I delivered consistently, earning respect through performance rather than connections. Cameron maintained strict professionalism, polite when we crossed paths, appreciative of quality work in team meetings, but distant. No personal conversations, no coffee invitations, no casual check-ins about my well-being. Exactly what he'd promised. But sometimes during late nights when the building emptied, I'd catch glimpses of him through the glass walls of his corner office. Working alone, tie loosened, reading glasses perched on his nose. Sometimes he'd look up. Our eyes would meet briefly across the distance. Then he'd quickly return his attention to his screen. Was he avoiding me personally? Or was this genuinely just professional boundary setting? One Friday evening around 8 o'clock, I was the last person on the floor, organizing files for Monday's presentation when my phone buzzed. Luther. I'd ignored his fourth call this week. I hadn't blocked him yet. Some part of me couldn't completely sever the connection. The phone rang again. Frustrated and exhausted, I answered. What do you want, Luther? Finally. Thought you'd permanently ghosted me. His voice sounded strained, different from his usual confident tone. Mikkel, I need to talk to you. Face to face. Please. We have nothing to discuss. Please. It's genuinely important. Life and death level important. Stop being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm completely serious. Meet me once. Just once. After that, if you want me to disappear entirely from your life, I will. I promise. I hesitated. Red flags waved frantically in my mind. But curiosity and old attachment made me ask. Where? That park near your apartment building. Tomorrow afternoon. 2 o'clock. Please, Mikkel. Fine. One meeting. That's all you get. I hung up, immediately regretting the agreement. That sounded intense. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. Cameron stood in my doorway, jacket draped over his arm, clearly preparing to leave for the night. How much had he overheard? Sorry. I wasn't eavesdropping intentionally. I was walking past and noticed you were still here. His expression shifted from professional to concerned. Luther. I nodded confirmation. What did he want? To meet tomorrow. Claims it's important. I sighed heavily. Probably another manipulation attempt. Cameron remained quiet for a moment, clearly debating whether to speak. Finally, be extremely careful. When Luther gets desperate, he becomes unpredictable. I've witnessed it personally. Don't meet him alone anywhere. I'll be fine, Mikkel. His voice carried firm authority. I'm serious about this. Take someone with you. Or at minimum stay in a public location where other people are around. It's a public park. Broad daylight. I'll be perfectly fine. He didn't look convinced but nodded. Call me if anything happens. Anything at all? I'm serious. You're still my boss, Cameron. I can't just forget the boss-employee hierarchy for a moment. As someone who, he paused, selecting words carefully, as someone who genuinely cares about your safety and well-being. Please. Before I could respond, he handed me a different card. Not the business one from before. This contained his personal cell number, not the corporate line. Use it if necessary. He left, leaving me standing there with the card, wondering what tomorrow would bring and whether I was walking into another of Luther's traps. Saturday arrived cold and overcast. 2 o'clock found me sitting on a park bench watching families play. Joggers pass, couples stroll hand in hand. Enough people around to feel safe, not so crowded as to lack privacy for conversation. Luther appeared 10 minutes late. He looked terrible, significant weight loss, dark circles shadowing his eyes, clothes hanging loose and wrinkled. Nothing resembling the put-together person I'd dated for over a year. Mikel, thank you for coming. He sat on the opposite end of the bench, maintaining distance that surprised me. You said life and death, so explain. He drew a deep, shaky breath. I'm moving. Permanently. Out of state. New job opportunity. Fresh start away from everything here. I hadn't expected that. Oh? Well, good for you, I suppose. I came to apologize properly, without excuses or justifications. His voice cracked with emotion. Everything you said about my behavior, the manipulation, the public humiliation, making you feel clingy and inadequate, all it was true. I was a terrible boyfriend, a terrible person to you. You deserved so much better. Luther, let me finish, please. He looked at me directly, eyes showing genuine remorse for the first time in our entire relationship. I started therapy 2 weeks ago. My therapist has been helping me recognize my toxic patterns, how I hurt people without even fully realizing the damage I inflict. And you suffered the most. I'm genuinely sorry, Mikel. Truly, deeply sorry. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to maintain anger, hold on to the hurt as protection. Part of me felt profound sadness for both of us, for what we could have been if he'd been healthier. I accept your apology, I said finally, and I genuinely hope therapy helps you. Everyone deserves the opportunity to heal and grow. I'm also sorry about Cameron. The threats I sent, the accusations I made, those were wrong, completely wrong. He's actually good for you in ways I never was or could be. Luther stood slowly. That's everything I needed to say. I won't bother you again. Take care of yourself, Mikel. He walked away without looking back, just like that. I sat there processing for several minutes. Closure? Perhaps. Strange? Definitely. Unexpected? Absolutely. Walking home, my phone rang. Cameron, you're alive. That's reassuring. Told you I'd be fine. What happened? If you're comfortable sharing, I recounted everything. Luther's apology, the move, the therapy admission, the blessing regarding Cameron. Wow, I wasn't expecting that level of self-awareness from him, honestly. Cameron sounded genuinely surprised. How are you feeling about it? Confused? Relieved? I honestly don't know yet. That's completely fair. Processing complex emotions takes time. He paused. Listen, I know I established rules about keeping personal matters separate from work. But, are you free tonight? Why? Because you just experienced significant emotional closure with your ex. And I don't want you sitting alone overthinking everything until you spiral. Come over. I'll cook dinner. We'll talk. As friends. No pressure, no expectations. Cameron, please. I genuinely care. Mikel. As a friend, as someone who's navigated similar situations. Let me be there for you. How could I refuse? All right. Text me your address. His penthouse exceeded anything I'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city, minimalist furniture that managed to feel warm rather than sterile. Personal touches everywhere. Photographs on shelves. Books stacked on every surface. A well-loved guitar resting in the corner. You play guitar? I pointed at the instrument. Badly. Therapeutically badly. But it helps when I need to decompress. He handed me a glass of wine. Dinner's almost ready. Make yourself comfortable. We ate simple perfection. Homemade pasta with garlic bread. Fresh salad. Conversation flowed naturally, carefully avoiding Luther entirely. Cameron shared stories about building his business empire. Failures before successes. Lessons learned through painful mistakes. I told him about my abandoned photography dream. Why did you stop pursuing it? Luther said. Forget what Luther said. Why did you stop? I considered the question honestly. Fear, I think. Fear of failing. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of disappointing people. Show me your work. What? Your photographs. Show me. Hesitantly, I pulled out my phone, navigating to an Instagram account I hadn't touched in 2 years. Travel photography, street scenes, landscapes capturing moments most people overlooked. Cameron scrolled silently, studying each image with focused attention, then looked up, expression serious. Mikkel, these are incredible. Genuinely portfolio-level professional incredible. You're just being kind. I'm never just kind when evaluating talent. These are exceptional. Genuinely exceptional. He returned my phone. Why aren't you actively pursuing this? Because photography doesn't pay bills reliably. Accounting does. What if I told you Hamilton and Company needs a brand photographer? Someone to document our office spaces, company events, corporate culture for marketing purposes, part-time initially alongside your analyst role. Could develop into full-time if it gains traction. My heart stopped. Are you offering me another job? I'm offering you opportunity to pursue your passion while maintaining financial stability. Accounting during business hours, photography projects on the side. Eventually, if photography takes off, you choose which path to follow. But at least you're trying instead of wondering, what if forever? Cameron, this is opportunity. Same as before. You're talented in ways you don't recognize. I have a genuine business need. This is practical. He smiled. But yes, I do want to help you specifically, because I see potential in you that you don't see in yourself yet. I didn't realize tears were streaming down my face until Cameron handed me tissues. Sorry, this is embarrassing. It's not. It's human. He sat beside me on the couch, close but respecting boundaries. Mikkel, I need you to understand something fundamental. When I look at you, I don't see someone requiring rescue or fixing. I see someone incredibly talented who just needs support and encouragement, and I want to provide that, not from pity, not expecting anything in return, but because being around you lets me be myself. No pretense, no CEO performance, just Cameron. I looked at him, really looked. Hazel eyes that had become so familiar, strong jawline, slight stubble, hair mussed from running his fingers through it repeatedly. Vulnerable expression I'd never witnessed before. Cameron, I whispered. I like you, Mikkel, he said softly. Not as an employee, not as Luther's ex-boyfriend, just you. The person who overthinks everything, who's insanely talented. He shows kindness even when it's difficult. And I know this is complicated, boss-employee dynamics, Luther connection, timing, but I needed you to know the truth. My breath caught in my throat. You don't have to respond, he continued quickly. I just wanted honesty between us. No expectations, no pressure, just truth. But I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell him that these past weeks, even with professional distance, he'd made me feel valued in ways Luther never had. That his support felt liberating rather than suffocating. Instead, I leaned forward and kissed him. He froze momentarily, surprise, hesitation, then kissed me back. Gentle, tentative. Like he feared I might change my mind. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek with impossible softness. When we separated, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. Mikkel, are you certain about this? I don't want you feeling pressured. I'm certain, I whispered. More certain than I've been about anything in a very long time. He smiled. Real, genuine, beautiful smile reaching his eyes. Okay then. We talked for hours afterward. About possibilities, concerns, logistics. Cameron insisted on keeping work separate. We'd need to disclose the relationship to human resources. Maintain strict professionalism at the office. I agreed completely. This will be complicated, he warned. I know, people will gossip. Make assumptions. Let them. Luther will probably react badly when he eventually finds out. He's moving away. And honestly, I'm not afraid of his opinion anymore. Cameron pulled me closer, arm around my shoulders. Then we'll figure it out, together. Next morning, I woke on his couch. He'd offered the guest bedroom, but I'd fallen asleep mid-conversation. Blanket tucked around me. Cameron in the kitchen making coffee. Morning, he said, handing me a perfect cup. Morning. We sat in comfortable silence, watching sunrise paint the city gold through massive windows. My phone buzzed. Luther's name, heard through family channels about you and Cameron. Good for you both. Genuinely, he'll treat you infinitely better than I ever could. Take care, Mikkel. I showed Cameron the text. Well, that's surprisingly mature character development. Maybe therapy's actually working. Maybe. He sipped his coffee. So, photography position. Interested? Extremely. Good. Because I already mentioned it to the marketing team. They're excited. Cameron. I laughed. You're supposed to ask permission first. Where's the fun in that? He grinned, mischievous and boyish, completely different from his serious CEO persona. And in that moment, watching him smile, coffee warming my hands, sunrise painting everything golden, I realized something profound. This was happiness, not the dramatic, consuming, suffocating variety Luther offered, but the steady, supportive, genuine kind. The kind where I didn't need to change myself, the kind where I was enough, exactly as I was.